Hello, hello. Ooh, I sound loud.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, wow.
Whoops. My bad.
Why don't we put that on like one of those buttons?
Yeah, I know. We do. We
Like-
need that, don't we?
Yeah, like you could just like have one of those sounds. Andrew, do you know how to do this?
Yeah, I could easily do that. I just
Andrew, you
haven't.
know how to fart? We got more background a little bit right now
Yeah.
than we
Oh,
had
yeah.
before. But does that, I mean, I guess that's okay.
It's just because it's louder now. I switched the setting on here because I was like, why am I maxed out? Like, this shouldn't happen. But I switched.
Dude,
something.
did you hit the wrong button?
No, we're recording.
And then the whole episode was gone.
Oh, my God.
That's not happening again. And I didn't even clarify on the last episode. That wasn't my fault.
I know.
The power went out to the board, and then that just totally disintegrated the SD card.
So then why didn't you check with the power company before we started recording? That was your fault. It is
Hello,
all your fault.
Smudge.
We were in LA. You know how long the wait times are when you call anybody down there.
Yeah, you have family in LA, right?
I couldn't. Yeah, SoCal-ish.
Exactly. No
Dude,
excuses.
Dude, don't sass me right now. I don't appreciate you attacking me. It's not very nice.
All right, what is this, episode 301, I guess we'll call it?
301, yeah.
Or it might be something different. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it could get shuffled, but we're at least over 300, and we're still at Philz Coffee in Davis.
So episode 300 was the epic episode about the biceps.
Yes, it was.
And I think we got something else to talk about now because you can't just have big biceps. It might kind of look weird if you don't have some thickness to them triceps.
Yeah, true. Unless you just like wear certain shirts that accentuate the biceps only, right?
It's just like assless chaps, but it's just like
Exactly.
You know, I think the definition of chaps is that they don't have an ass. So I've always been confused why they're called. I guess assless just kind of like makes it sound worse.
It's a word
or
that
better,
you wanna
I guess.
yeah.
It's a word you
Assless.
want to use.
Assless chaps.
Yeah. Your watch keeps getting me.
You don't normally it's blinding you.
It's bad.
Sorry about the shimmer. Let's see if I can bring it down a little bit.
That's great.
Anyway, yeah, we're talking about the triceps today, and trying to get the arms to grow can be kind of difficult. And I think for some reason when we train our arms, we start to apply different rules to them, and they don't really need different rules. They should have the same rules that we have for our quads, same rules we have for our hamstrings. You want any body part to get bigger, then we obviously need good food. We need good sleep and those things. And supplementation may fit into your training regimen as well. But we're not talking about that today. We're going to talk about how do we just get the triceps to grow from a training perspective.
Yes. Yeah. The triceps, I have a love-hate relationship. More nowadays, a love relationship with my triceps because, yeah, man, they were...
Wow. I didn't see that coming, did you?
Yeah.
No.
They are and always have been my toughest muscle group to make grow. Shoulders would grow, chest would grow, biceps would grow. Triceps were a bitch. Like, my first ever show that I did, the judge was like, you need bigger triceps. I'm like, I know I do. So yeah, I love talking about triceps.
You're like, thanks, now I'm going to go kill myself. Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, almost any movement early on that I did, I would get off whatever it was, and I'd be like, Mark, man, I really feel that in my triceps. He's like,
I'd always be so baffled.
You'd be like-
We just did lat pull downs, bro.
and I would feel it in my triceps. He's like, you say that after every freaking movement. I'm like, I don't know. I'm tricep dominant. I guess that's one way to build them up is just every movement you just only use your triceps.
It is weird, though, when it does happen on back exercises, like something like a pullover or something. You're like, that's weird. I got a crazy pump in my tricep somehow. You're like, I don't know. I wasn't really going for that.
Yeah, but no, seriously, the triceps for me, like when you think about them, there's like what people talk about the three heads. That sounds weird.
There's three of us.
The lateral, medial, and the long head.
Ooh.
Yes, but for me, I think that I started focusing more on that long head because it was so big. And I think a lot of people do overhead movements for the long head of the tricep.
Right.
And that's great. Like I like doing overhead. I love the cable machine, so I like doing overhead rope cable movements. But there's a lot of other overhead movements that people like to use for the long head of the tricep.
We're inside of a coffee shop today. We're here at Philz Coffee in Davis, and if we're going to be talking about triceps, I feel like we got to talk about the French press. I wonder why it's called. I wonder why it's called a French press. I mean, from the lifting perspective, like that's just with the weight behind your head, right? The French press.
What? Yeah, I don't know why it's called a French press, but it is a great movement.
It is good movement. Well, you get a good stretch. You know, I think movements that get good healthy range of motion and get you to stretch, I think are great. A stiff leg deadlift is going to stretch the hamstrings a lot and kind of open you up for kind of longer muscles and a further range of motion. And then when you're doing triceps, that's going to stretch the shoulders and stretch your triceps at the same time. Lunges can be like that a little bit for your legs, or something like a step up or something. You're kind of getting a little bit, or a fly, cable fly, pec fly of some sort. That'll kind of get the muscles to open up a little bit. But I think, to get there's a lot of different ways to train. And we were talking about biceps. We were talking about, maybe you should try to go a little heavier. Maybe that would be a key ingredient, because maybe you're starting your workouts off with kind of some fluff and some pump, and you're not really getting into the heavier, bigger movements. Now, you can work out any different way that you'd like, but from our vantage point, we feel that it would be best if you started out with the bigger exercises, if you started out with movements that allow you to use more weight. And in this case, you might want to start out with something like a close grip bench press, because a close grip bench press is going to allow you to handle the most amount of weight. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be able to do a 300-pound skull crusher? You're probably just going to crush your skull.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be able to do that. But are you going to be able to do a 300 or 200-pound close grip bench press? Probably eventually, if you work at it, you'll be able to do something like that. So you're going to be able to handle a lot more weight. And I feel that I feel strongly that that's a great way to kind of kick off your tricep workout.
No, that's what I love. Like the close grip bench press, especially for me, just because when I overworked my biceps for that pretty much a year and a half, I started getting some like elbow issues, but I could still close grip bench press. So starting off with the close grip bench press, like you would progress any movement. I think we talked about this in the last episode, for lower reps, multiple sets, and then moving into the rest of your tricep movements is a great idea. But when you do the close grip bench press, it's a good idea not just to, I guess, just throw around the weight. It sounds kind of boring, but you want to actually, if you're focusing on your triceps on that day, try to really feel it in the triceps.
Right.
It may be kind of tough to do, but again, if you slow down the weight, you'll probably end up feeling it there.
And there's a lot of other exercises you can do to help build the triceps. I mean, we've got a wide variety of things you can do. You can do all different kinds of variations of tricep push downs and things like that. But I think if we're all just being honest with ourselves, like the rope tricep push down is not really doing a whole lot in terms of helping your triceps to grow big and be like real full. It might give you a pump and it might feel good and it might be fun to do, and it's probably the most popular exercise in the entire gym. Mm-hmm. And one of the simplest. That's the kind of great thing about a tricep push down, is that it's like anyone can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, how good does it feel when you can like almost do the whole rack with not with ease, but like you just load it up and like, yeah, I can do that, and you just wham, you just go up to it and you just
you kind of use your whole body weight and you get all fired up and you slam the weight down.
Yeah.
But I think you'd be better off in almost all cases. I think you'd be better off trying to start out each thing that you do with some sort of barbell movement. So in this case, we're talking about, we have the option to do a close grip bench press. You could also try something like a floor press.
Yeah.
You can also try what we do quite a bit at Super Training Gym, which is board presses. That is a shorter range of motion. You can try what's just called a half press, where you bring the weight halfway down and you're trying to stop approximately in the same spot every single time. You can use our product called the slingshot, which is going to give you give you a little help off your chest, but then you're going to have to lock the weight out the rest of the way. Mm-hmm. And then we get into some really fun and really cool stuff. You got like bands and chains that you can use. Andrew mentioned loving to use chains when he does curls, but holy crap, if you've never used any chains on tricep movements or bands, it's amazing. And using chains on a tricep extension is awesome. Like, so we take the single handle in our gym and we connect that to the chains. When you bring the weight down, it's almost completely unloaded. So right where it would hurt your elbow the worst, right at that transition point, the weight is unloaded for you. It's not really heavy in that position. And then as you progress and as you go to lock out, more and more weight stacks on there. So I think it tends to want to match your strength curve a little bit more naturally than just the kind of brute force of just the weight. So some chains or some bands can be really beneficial as well.
I was going to say, so like my love of using chains for curls is the exact same for doing tricep work. Skull crushers crushed my soul. Like they hurt. Like my elbows, like you know when you hit like on your funny bone and it just like tickles, but it's not very funny. I get that exact same feeling when I do a skull crusher, but when I'm using chains, it pretty much goes completely away. Like it just feels so good. And then again, I can really get a good pump out of that, because I think everything Mark just said, there's no weight at the bottom, and then as you're getting stronger, so does the weight. Like it pushes against you. It's sort of like when you have a gym bro helping you get through like a hard set, like it just kind of like boop boop boop. I can't recommend the using chains with triceps enough.
So what specific movements would you want to use chains with when it comes to the triceps?
Just mainly, I would say with sticking them on the end of a curl bar, or using them. You can use them on the bench press as well, and you can use them in the case of like a single arm movement, like we do at the gym, and we connect it to that single handle. But using it for using bands or chains on a bench press is highly beneficial as well, because it's called accommodating resistance. The weights are heavier at the top and they're a little bit lighter at the bottom.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are in a commercial gym, it might be really hard to have access to chains. And then are you going to lug a bunch of 20-pound chains into the gym? Like that would be a little weird and it'd be very inconvenient. But hooking up some bands to a bench press isn't that complicated. You can figure out a bunch of different ways. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube of how to set it up and how to do it. So utilizing bands might be even better benefit to you, since the chains might not be available. And then just doing like a close grip bench, or any variation of a bench press, the board presses, even like a paused bench. Pausing the weight. We talk about pause squats a lot, right? Pausing the weight on your chest for a good 3 or 4 count. Well, now you don't have that momentum of kind of bouncing that weight off. We don't have the energy from our muscles being kind of elastic to carry us through the top range of that motion. If we stop on the chest for a 3 or 4 count, now we're really screwed. Yeah. And you have to press through it really hard. So some band training can go a long way. I actually think that a lot of the stuff I did years ago, a lot of the West Side Barbell stuff, doing the 8 sets of 3 and doing this fast, explosive work, actually helped my tricep growth tremendously, because we were almost always using bands and chains on that day.
Okay. One thing I think to think about here too is, just because again I've had a really tough time, is for people that, if you've been training for a while and you think you have a tough time growing your triceps, if they're just not moving forward as fast, if you have 2 days where you're doing pushing type movements, right, like chest and triceps or whatever, on one of those days maybe just start off with tricep movements. So you can do your close grip bench press, but if you typically do like a lot of pushing movements, start off with a lot of tricep focused movements, and then move into like maybe your dumbbell benching and all those other pressing movements, so that you can move more overall weight with your triceps first, because that'll help your progression a lot. That helped me out a ton.
For yourself, where did you put your tricep training? Did you have a day that was bicep tricep, or did you finish off your bench pressing with tricep movements, or how did you do it?
So when I was really struggling, I had a 3-day thing. One of my days was an arm day, but it was an arm day that started with triceps. Another day was a push day, but again, it was a push day that started off with, I would do close grip bench pressing, I would move over and do cable push downs, I'd then go over and do single arm dumbbell kickbacks. I'd move into another tricep movement, then I would do all of my chest movements, because my chest was never really a problem to me.
Yeah, and so you guys kind of understand, like, because Nsima didn't have an issue with his chest, had an issue more with his triceps, the focus shifted to the triceps. And so some people are like, man, I would never do that because I want to like bench as much as possible. But in your scenario, you still could.
Yeah.
Because that would be something that is, still targeting the triceps, maybe indirectly in the beginning of the workout.
And it just allowed me to progress my triceps more, because they weren't, since I wasn't saving them for towards the end of the workout, they weren't as fatigued. And since they weren't as fatigued, I could move way more training volume towards them, and that's what allowed them to grow a lot.
So is there a difference between going for training your triceps for aesthetics versus trying to lock out your bench press?
I would say that they match up well together. They because most people that have like really big triceps are usually very strong. It would be rare for someone to be like, yeah, I bench 225 and they just have, some 20-inch arms, right? I mean, you're not going to really see that. Most people that have benched like over 500 pounds, they're going to have like a 20-inch arm. And part of that reason, too, is just body weight. We mentioned in the bicep episode, like just gaining weight. You want your triceps to be bigger. You want your legs to be bigger. Like the fastest, and you want to be stronger. The fastest way, in my opinion, and from stuff I've seen personally, is to just gain weight. Now, we don't want to do it, we don't want to just gain weight like whatever way that we can. I think there's still a healthier way. There's still other options to do it. And you're really trying to get the advantage of gaining more muscle mass and not just fat. Maybe it's a combination, but you don't want to just get fat. That's not really gonna help anything. And no one's gonna think your arms look impressive if you're just like big and fat, because they won't have any shape to them. They won't really look like anything.
Yeah, I just brought that up because you hear powerlifters often saying like, I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the strength, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. But in this case, literally going for the looks is actually helping the bench.
Right. No, it helps tremendously. Some other exercises. So one of the problems that I don't think you run into, an issue that I don't think you really run into when you're training your biceps or when you're really training anything else, now that I kind of think about it, I guess you run into shoulder issues sometimes with pressing, but the elbow is a real bastard, and that can be really, really annoying and excruciating. That's a whole entire podcast in and of itself, and we could bring in someone like a Kelly Starrett and sit down with him and ask him a bunch of questions and ask him if he's ever fucked his elbow. But, to try to get past that is very limiting. And my suggestion is, I think a lot of times I have people that tell me, they're like, I can't do skull crushers. I just can't do them. Like, it kills my tricep, or it kills my elbow, rather. Too much elbow pain. I got my elbow feels like it's on fire. And they almost always grab, like, the outside of their elbow, kind of near their tricep area, or they grab, like, the inside. You either got, like, you have either, like, tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. I believe golfer's elbow is on the inside, and I think tennis elbow is more on the outside of the elbow. But we've all had that pain. It's annoying. And when you try to do something like dips, or you try to do something like tricep extensions, it's a real killer. But what I've noticed with almost everybody I've ever worked with or talked to about this, the fact is that they actually can do it. They just choose not to do it because of the pain associated with it, and because they're not using their head. They're not thinking intelligently, and they're not doing it without pain, without too much discomfort. So if you're thinking in your head that I can't do it, I bet you that you could. I bet you that you could do a skull crusher just fine with the bar. Now let's take the bar and let's see, like, can we add something to it? Can we add more weight? Would we be able to add chains? Would you be able to loop a band behind your back and then try tricep extension that way, or tricep or skull crusher that way? Because now it's almost weightless at the bottom. I bet you there are some ways, or maybe even a reverse band setup. I bet you there's some ways that you probably could do it, but you're kind of being stubborn about it, and you don't want to suck it up, and you don't want to use the 10-pound dumbbells.
That's okay. So let me ask you this, because that was one thing that happened to me after I blasted the hell out of my triceps for a long time. My elbows became an issue, and I have some things that worked well for me. But what would be your top suggestions because I know a lot of people are like, oh, fuck my elbow. What are your top suggestions for people to help deal with their elbow issues on tricep movements?
Man, there's a bunch of different things you can do. Most of the things that you're going to do for your elbow bothering you are going to be like Band-Aids. They're just going to be something that you put on there temporarily to give you some relief. So a compression cuff, an elbow sleeve, some of these things can help. Icing it, I'm a huge proponent. I still think ice is effective. Some compression on there could be really good. Get like one of those Kelly Starrett voodoo floss bands. Really, what's aggravating the area, though, and what's causing a lot of the problem is probably a lack of range of motion in the shoulders. And that's a giant pain in the ass to try to solve that. But a lot of people, because they're trying to really lock in the tricep, they're trying to lock in the shoulder, and they're trying to bring the elbow real close into their body. Mm-hmm. And I would say for bigger guys, especially with a wider shoulder base, I would suggest against that. I wouldn't even bother to try to do that. Just let your elbows kind of fall naturally, where Smokey's giving us hand signals, and it's like, I'm not sure to throw am I going to throw a slider or a fucking screwball right here? I'm not sure.
There you go.
I think he just said that he loves Tupac or something like that.
I think so.
I don't know what he's doing over there.
Just saw the movie Juice the other day.
Was it good?
Yeah, Juice is great.
For the
Oh,
first
shit.
time or just going back?
I've seen.
It's fine if it's the first time because it's an older movie. I'm
I've
cool.
seen parts of it, but that was like my first time going through the whole thing. Me and my girl have we just totally shifted. We
I don't care. This is important. This is a really good movie.
Right. Yeah, but we have a list of movies within the culture that we got to watch, and we're just kind of
Within
going
what
through.
culture?
So no. This is good because I've been saying I need to make a list of black movies that Nsima needs to watch because I'm like, oh, have you seen Fear of a Black Hat? And he's like, what's that? I'm like, it's the better version of CB4.
We just watched
what's
Boys
that?
in the Hood again last night.
Good movie. One of my favorite things is when he's
That is an awesome movie.
It really is.
He's scratching the scratcher, and he's like, man, you got to be Mexican to win those.
And then sadly he gets.
I got blasted right after that.
I saw. I was flipping through the channels the other day, and Living Color popped up.
Ooh,
And I was like, man, that show was so fucking
good.
It was.
That crossed some racial barriers
of
for
course,
sure.
Really
yeah.
did.
It was
I
awesome.
remember being so upset when I was a kid when it went off air.
I know.
Jim Carrey.
Those guys were geniuses.
Yeah.
Or-
Anyway, back to the triceps.
You're talking about like elbow, like protection
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, trying to protect that elbow. It's not an easy thing to do. I've had everything done to my elbow that you can possibly think of. I've had stem cells, which I don't think stem cells are effective. I don't think they do anything.
Ooh.
I've had iced it. I've had massage therapy. I've had all the different therapies that you can think of.
That was like the Regenikine stuff, right? Or you had both? I think.
I've had all kinds of stuff like injected into it.
Yeah.
I've done a bunch of different stuff, and there really hasn't been anything to really get the pain out of there.
You got to try CBD oil, bro.
Yeah, I know. But for people that are aggravated by it and that are having a hard time with it, I would say that trying to figure out some ways in the gym, some things that are reasonable for you to do in the gym that are going to try to open up your shoulder a little bit. Maybe training your rotator cuff a little bit will help. Like those are all things that helped, and they still allowed me to bench press 578 pounds in a meet. It's just that, it'd be aggravating. I'd be limited a little bit on some of the stuff that I could do. But when it came to, doing something like skull crushers and stuff like that, I was still able to do them. I just always used a weight that was appropriate for my pain level. So let's say, you got a pain scale, 1 out of 10, 10 being the worst and 1 being, virtually nothing. I would just always make sure that it was nothing more than like 2 or 3. I would get a little negative feedback in there, but it was nothing that was killing me. And I would say, wrap it up, put an elbow sleeve on it, like just do whatever you got to do to get through the movements for that particular day, but make sure the pain's not so excruciating that it sets you backwards.
Yeah, no, that like I think the big thing there is lightening that load on the tricep movements, because what happened for me was like any type of like extension movement just felt like crap. So number one, I started lightening the load and doing a lot of reps on my triceps. Now when I say a lot, I don't mean just like 15 reps. I mean like 20 to 25s with an adequate load where I could really feel it. That helped me out a lot. And then one odd thing that I started doing, it's not really that odd, but it worked pretty well for me. At the end of one of my workouts each week, I would do. You've ever heard of occlusion training?
Oh yeah,
I didn't have one of the. They have like cool occlusion things that you can use now that like at work, but I actually had tourniquets that you could put around. I put it around my bicep right here, and I'd pretty much be doing like at the end of a workout, I'd tighten it up, do 15 reps, rest for 30 seconds, another 20, another 20, another 20, and the big thing is that you could do really really light weight. It forces blood into the triceps. It keeps the blood there.
A lot of blood.
A lot of blood. It's painful, but you don't like since the weight's not too heavy, your elbow isn't hurting that much.
Right.
So I feel like for a lot of people that could be one of those things that helps them a lot too.
You brought up something huge, and I know that we were talking in the beginning about getting to a heavier weight, but like, are there ways that you could get yourself to perhaps use a lighter weight but still have a great response? And one way to do that would be through superset. So we mentioned how, like, you got a regular standard tricep push down or push down with a rope. In this case, like if you have a lot of elbow pain, do something safe first, like a tricep push down, get some blood in there. Now that limits the amount of weight. We're intentionally doing that. We're doing that on purpose because we're limited on how much weight that we can use anyway. And you're also kind of cueing, and you're kind of getting the muscle pre-fatigued for that secondary movement that you're going to do. So you could do 2 or 3 movements even right before you went into doing the dumbbell tricep extension or a regular style skull crusher, and you could still get a great workout from it. So I think a lot of times with our training, we're trying to find, how do we get a massive result with like the least amount of damage being done, and that would be a great way to do that.
What about like, because you in the previous episode you were talking about doing reverse curls. What about doing something as simple as like changing your grip to help? Like, have you noticed any difference in less elbow pain because of it?
Yeah, changing your grip and changing like where your elbow position is. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes people are trying to really tuck them in and keep them close to the body. So you might want to try some different movements. You might want to try like not different movements, but the same movement, but just done a little differently. If you're doing a tricep push down, and when you're doing a tricep push down, you're looking at your knuckles, you can just turn your hand over the other way where your palms are up, and you can push down that way, and you can try that way. You can try single arm movements would be fantastic, because now you can move in a different way that you could normally. So you take like a cable and you do a single arm movement. Again, these are going to be exercises that you're unfortunately going to have to train a little bit lighter, but they're still really, really effective exercises, and you can almost look at them as being like therapeutic. These are things that can help. And we talked about getting into the muscle in the bicep episode. You want to get into the muscle on this too, but you want to also think about the healing powers and the healing potential of doing occlusion training, getting all that blood in there, and of doing like a single arm movement. You want to think inside the muscle.
Yeah. And I would say also for like people who are still new to the game like myself, doing double, like both hands, do both arms, sometimes just like, man, I'm just not feeling it. And then I'll just switch to single arm. I'm like, oh, there we go. So if you're having a hard time getting, chasing the pump, whatever it may be with the triceps or any movement, try single arm, because that also is, we were talking about what changed. That was one of the things, because then I could learn like, oh, okay, that's what it's supposed to feel like. Now let's implement it with both arms.
This is an oldie but a goodie, but can increase your frequency a ton, is to just do band tricep push downs. Mm-hmm. And you could take a band and you can hang it up over top of a door, or you could, wherever you can on a pull-up bar or something like that. Louis Simmons was a big proponent of that, and he'd say do 100 every day. So just basically, you do 100 every day. Who knows if you get to it every day, but just any time that you walk past it, if you have it set up at your house, you're like, all right, I'm going to bust out 25 reps or 50 reps, get a little burn in there. And it's also going to be therapeutic again for your elbow, because sometimes it's just kind of hard to get blood flow, and it's hard to find movements that don't hurt. But a band push down most likely won't hurt at all.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm actually going to start doing that. That's an amazing idea, and I don't know why I haven't been doing that until this point.
It's great, and you can do it a bunch of different ways. You can, have the palms up and push down. And it's something I did. That's how I got my first 500-pound bench.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I don't think I've ever said that before.
When you went for it recently, I remember during training, you're like, I got to get 500 pounds, so we're doing 500, tricep push. Like, oh, he was serious. So we did like sets of like 100.
I didn't do 500 every day, but I did hundreds and hundreds of tricep push downs. Yeah, my elbow barely hung on for that last round, that 500-pound bench, but hey, it worked.
Yeah, and then they also make like super like affordable like door hanging things where you can just have it set up on a closet or something, and you just walk up right into it.
Do it on my pull-up bar. I have a pull-up bar set up, so I'm just going to hang the band on the pull-up bar and do push-downs.
Damn, this whole time you've been hiding that from us?
What, the pull-up bar?
Yeah, I didn't know you had a pull-up bar. Did you know he had a pull-up bar?
Smokey just gave us the peace signal.
I don't know what that means.
I think he's peacing out. I'm not sure.
Maybe. He's going to the restroom. He's going to go poop.
Ah, got it. No, okay.
He's got number 2 going.
I thought he did.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that hand signal.
One thing too, because I've like a lot of people have mentioned this problem, and I think like I had this problem in the past too. During close grip bench pressing, I wasn't able to actually feel my triceps that much. And one thing that you mentioned is something that I did a lot of: tricep pushdowns or banded pushdowns before bench pressing, because then it can you pre-activate the tricep, you can feel it, and then when you start bench pressing, you can actually start feeling it more as you go up and down. So that's a really good idea. Like, you should be warming up a little bit before these movements, but you definitely want to do some push down type movements, and that'll help you feel it more.
Something I messed with more recently, back to the band training, is I took a band and folded it in half and then put it through the cable, and did tricep push downs with it. And man, it's weird because the weights will oscillate. They'll bounce up and down. They'll move all over the place. They'll shift around. That's something we forgot to mention too. in your efforts to try to repair, a banged up elbow, the bamboo bar can be fantastic.
Yeah.
If you don't have access to something like that, you can take bands, you can kind of loop them through some weights and put them on the end of a barbell. And again, it's going to force you to use so much less weight that it's not going to be painful, but effective. Just looping a band. Just take a band, you fold it in half, and then put it through a carabine on a cable and do a tricep push down with it. And holy crap, that'll get your triceps just completely on fire. There's a lifter years ago named J.M. Blakely, and he used to do these presses called J.M. presses. J.M. Blakely was one of the first guys to bench around 700 pounds back many, many years ago. And he was a big jack son of a bitch, kind of looked like an off-season bodybuilder. Anyway, he did these tricep movements that became famous because of how strong he got. But the reason why the movement was so good is because it was a hybrid between a press and extension. And when you take a hybrid movement like that, well, now we're able to take a great exercise like an extension, which is kind of primarily for isolation. Primarily, you're going to use lighter weights with it. But now because he turned it into a press extension, you can use a lot more weight with it. So the JM press, you're kind of taking it's almost like an extension on the way down and a close grip bench on the way up sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a weird combo, but go on YouTube, check that out. You can find a bunch of people demonstrating how to do a JM press. But that exercise was great because he was able to overload the tricep. He was able to use heavy weight. Another great exercise is a reverse grip bench press. And with all the different elbow trouble I've ever had, a reverse grip bench press does not hurt my elbow at all.
Wow.
And it will light your triceps up like crazy. Just be very careful with it.
It's scary.
Have someone lift off to you because it's like impossible to get the weights out of the rack and stuff like that.
O'Hearn does. You guys have done that for like 315, right?
Oh, yeah. O'Hearn did, he did like 5 sets of 15 reps.
With 315.
With 315. I know.
I have nothing to say about this.
Savage.
Well, he does 315 squat on his birthday every year.
Yeah.
For like
however
however many years old he is, he does it for reps.
Wow.
Right.
That'd be good for you to start doing now because you could do it now.
I could do it now. I could definitely do that now. Oh, wow.
But you would be it would suck.
It would suck.
But yeah, you got to start doing it now so you can prep to get the 30 reps, 40 reps, 50 reps.
And he's probably gonna keep doing that.
Until
I
he's
believe
60?
Maybe even 70.
Got it. So,
Wow.
quick review. So, top 3 movements to help build size on your triceps.
I would say close grip bench press is great. You got a skull crusher, and then you're going to have to kind of figure out. And then we didn't mention dips.
Oh,
So I would say, close grip bench press of some sort. Could be incline, could be flat, could be even decline. No one does a decline bench anymore. Any one of those 3 would work really good to help build up some big triceps. And then, from there, you got some sort of skull crusher type of variation, whatever way you can handle. And then dips are fantastic. Maybe even some weighted dips. And let's also not forget about push-ups. I think we forget about push-ups all the time, but push-ups are amazing for your triceps, for your chest, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I would say with dips, throwing in a slingshot is huge because, doing a dip hurts my shoulders, but doing it with a slingshot, I can really focus on just the triceps, and it's incredible.
You might be able to get more full range of motion in there as well.
Yep.
I'd agree there. The close grip bench press, I think you could substitute the JM press too on different days, just because it's the same grip, but it's a different type of press. I haven't really done JM presses, but seeing how they're done, you could alternate the two. Overhead tricep extension, I like cable overhead tricep extension, but you could also do that with a cambered bar, and then the basic rope tricep pushdown.
It's effective.
Yeah.
The one of the movements I'm a huge fan of is a rolling tricep extension. That was famous from Westside Barbell, where you take the weight, you have dumbbells, you're lying down on a bench, take the dumbbell, you take the top part of the dumbbell, the flat part of the dumbbell, and you basically bring it down to your shoulder. You kind of drop it on your shoulder, you push your elbow up towards the sky, and then you kind of swing back the other way like you're swinging a hammer. And it's basically a cheating tricep extension is all it is. It's a cheating dumbbell tricep extension.
And your back is flat on the bench, you said?
Your back is flat on the bench. Yeah, you're sitting on a bench, or I'm sorry, laying on a bench, rather. Laying down. And you're going to bring the dumbbells, let's say it says 50 at the top. So you're using a 50-pound dumbbell. You want that 5-0 to land right on your delt. because you're going to kind of go down and drop that part right on the shoulder. Not like drop it, but go down towards the shoulder. You're going to bring the elbow up a little bit towards the sky, and then you're going to kind of heave-ho everything in there that you can. And it's not the kind of movement where you're going to feel your triceps like burning. It's not like a rope push down. It's a different kind of movement, but again, it allows you to use more weight. And then someone might be like, oh, well, you're getting your lats in there too. And it's like, well, yeah, that's fine. I don't mind if my lats grow, and I don't mind if my rear delts and stuff grow too, because when I'm bench pressing, I'm going to be utilizing all these muscles as well. So that is a really good movement. And at Westside Barbell, like one of the major things I've learned there in terms of bench pressing was just to really attack things from as many different angles as possible. A Tate press was really famous there. A lot of people did those quite a bit. That's you're going to get your elbow out high, and rather than extending like towards your ears, you're extending more towards your chest. You let the weight rest on your chest, and then you kind of extend outward. That's a great movement.
Okay.
You can do them flat. You can do them incline. And then we did, and this is another great movement for people with a jacked up elbow. Try tricep extensions to your throat. Really try to, like, you can hang your head off the bench a little bit so that your head is kind of out of the way, and try to go towards your throat and try to really aim your elbow up towards the sky as much as you can. You'll get a little bit of a stretch in your shoulder. The amount of weight that you use is going to be like not great, which is actually good for this type of movement. You can use bands or you can use chains with a movement like that. But again, just to kind of reiterate, anyone who's got like a really jacked up elbow, it's really on fire, it's really bothering them a lot, try to figure out a way to incorporate some bands and chains in your training. It's going to be zeroed out at the bottom, and the weight's going to be heavier at the top. It's not going to hurt coming out of the bottom of the movement, and you can do any variation of a bench press, and you can do any variation of an extension that way.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I was going to just add to those, those are a little bit different movements than you would normally expect. For me, cadence is crucial on those, because you can easily, drop it on your shoulder and throw it up. But if you get a good rhythm going, man, Mark just said it doesn't burn too bad. For me, man, it kills me.
I can't forget what you mentioned about the single arms, though, too, for people that don't feel their triceps.
Yeah, that was one of them right there, was because I would do two. I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on. And then I do one. I'm like, oh, no wonder why. It's like, so doing two, I could easily throw them both up.
Yeah.
Doing one is like, oh my goodness. Like, so I'd have to drop weight for sure.
There we go.
A lot of the principles that we shared in episode 300 about the biceps is very similar to this episode. There's really not a difference in the general principles that we shared about like gaining weight, doing the bigger movements first, handling shit that's heavy, finding a way to do that kind of stuff, and then starting to break down more towards isolation stuff later in the workout. The only difference was just that your damn elbow can sometimes really bug you and really be aggravating. So you might have to find some loopholes and some ways around that in your tricep training. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate all of you out there. We're gonna, in the show notes, we'll give you try to give you an actual tricep workout that you can actually follow along with. And Andrew, where can people find you?
At I am Andrew Z on Instagram, and don't forget to follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project Podcast on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. We're actually on LinkedIn. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, obviously you know where to find us, but if you're not, make sure you subscribe there. What else? Just real quick, shout out to Philz Coffee in Davis. We really appreciate the opportunity to record here. Big thank you to Perfect Keto for sponsoring this podcast. It's perfectketo.com/Power Project. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject10. That'll get you $10 off any order of $40 or more. You guys know that we love certified Piedmontese. That's PIEDMONTESE.com. Big sponsor of the podcast. We love them. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject for 25% off your order. And again, huge thanks to Quest Nutrition. That's questnutrition.com. At checkout, enter promo code MarksQuest for 20% off your order. Nsima, if people want to get in touch with you, where are you at?
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and at Nsima Yin Yang on Twitter and TikTok. Mark, how about you?
World Carnivore Month is coming, January 1. Please join in. Just follow me on IG, at Mark Smellybell on Instagram and TikTok and on YouTube. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch y'all later.
Peace.